review of Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wei Take the Mic.
Welcome to Review of Raw. I'm John Pollock along with Wei Ting. We are not going to waste any time, Mr. Ting.
No, we aren't.
That's not true, because for the last 4 years, we've spent, you could debate wasted, a lot of time, because this was episode 1200 of Raw, meaning 600 hours since Raw has moved to 3 hours.
Okay, wow. You can argue everything we're doing is a waste of time, I guess.
I'm not saying a waste. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, okay.
Were you excited about episode 1200?
I had no idea, and I don't even know why it was really celebrated. 1200 is such a nothing number.
Was it really celebrated on this show?
I mean, even mentioned, I suppose.
Okay, we'll get into. They screw up anniversaries. We can add birthdays to the list, too.
Sure.
We'll explain the concept of birthdays later in the show. But it was episode 1200, as Michael Cole noted off the top. The show coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland at the Royal Farms Arena. Coming out of Extreme Rules, and the man who made his return at Extreme Rules kicked off the show. It was Seth Rollins, who celebrated his return by putting on his finest funeral attire, all in black, and then he took a shower. Because his hair was drenched here, and his jacket, by the end of this promo, was liquid.
Yeah.
This guy was like auditioning to be the next Shark, John Tenta.
The wet hair look is...
Done.
I mean, I would say as much of a trademark of the Shield guys as the vests were. And they've all managed to keep that. Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, wet hair.
Okay, but with a suit jacket, it looks ridiculous.
Definitely,
like his whole shoulders were just, there was so much water, I couldn't even listen to what he was saying.
Yeah.
He says that
And no more blonde. No more half blonde.
No, he's passed that off to Sienna on Impact.
Oh, okay. Took me a second.
He said he's been waiting for 200 days to speak. So he had a lot to get off his chest.
Wow, okay.
Thought he would give us an update on all his opinions that he has just kept stored inside for all this time. He hasn't spoken to a person. He says that he has been waiting to come back for his title that he never lost. They showed the pedigree delivered to Roman. And then brings up how the fans were booing him before he got hurt and then called him the weakest champion of all time.
Seth Rollins came out initially completely like a babyface, was smiling, was embracing the cheers from the audience, and at some point in this promo just decided to turn on the audience.
He's talked about how his knee buckled from putting this company on his back, and then said that he got all of the fans' letters and get well wishes. He took all of the letters, put them in a garbage can, and lit them on fire, and doesn't need any of the fans. And his new, slogan that he is pushing on his merchandise is rebuild, redesign, reclaim.
Okay.
Is your shirt in the mail? The 3 R's.
Yeah, I know. It's
recycle, reduce, reuse was what I thought when I heard this.
Seems incredibly organic. Like, I don't know. I don't know the insistence on everybody to have a catchphrase that fits perfectly on a T-shirt. You know what I mean? It just seems incredibly scripted and forced.
Haven't you ever been sick from work and you've come back and you've had a new mantra?
I don't know if I've ever had a T-shirt with any type of catchphrase.
Just you go to person by person and just tell them, Wei Ting, rejuvenated, reborn, revitalized.
No.
Have a good day. See you at lunch.
No, I don't.
I was kind of conflicted on this promo. On the one hand, he came out, as he said, to a hero's welcome, and he turned this crowd effectively.
Yeah.
At the same time, he felt like he was right back into the slot he was before, which was a heel that was not to me a effective top heel. Tremendous in the ring, but that was never the criticism was that he was this goofy champion that lost a lot.
Yeah, pretty much right back to status quo. And unfortunately, you and I, and everybody, when Rollins got injured, it was very unfortunate news. I think everybody was disappointed, especially at the time when so many guys were already out. But the silver lining was the fact that Rollins could come back as an incredibly over babyface. And I think everybody was kind of salivating at what this moment would have been. This moment tonight when he came back and, cut that big babyface promo, much like Triple H, that
Madison
big
Square
return
Garden.
at Madison Square Garden. And
They decided to throw out the comeback story for the surprise.
Okay, well, yeah, but even the babyface story I thought was huge, and there could still be a ton of money to be made, especially opposing somebody like a Roman Reigns, with Seth Rollins chasing the title as a babyface. I felt though today they don't seem to be going that direction at all, and it just effectively feels like they're throwing a ton of money away.
We're right back to November.
Before
Before the injury,
Yeah.
where this was the feud you knew they were going to be getting towards, that was going to be the match at Survivor Series. They just turned the clock back.
the WWE threw out loads of cash, just like Seth Rollins threw out all those letters from those fans.
Oh boy, what an analogy. Roman Reigns interrupts him and comes into the ring, and Rollins proceeds to go to the floor. When Shane McMahon dances down to the ring, and he goes over the Shield's breakup, and Rollins cashing in the Money in the Bank to steal the title away at WrestleMania 31, and announces that this singles match between these two is very much WrestleMania worthy. It was also Survivor Series worthy last November before the injury, and it is now going to be Money in the Bank worthy.
Yeah, so I mean, I certainly don't have an issue with the match. I think Rollins coming back for the title is certainly the right match to make, but it's the heel babyface dynamic, and I think they're continuing insistence on pushing Roman Reigns as a babyface, and therefore any of his challengers as heels. That is unfortunately really, wasting all those months of Seth Rollins being away.
I understand coming back as a heel because they very much need heels right now. They're not flipping Roman. They need heel opponents for this guy. I just hope that we aren't right back into where we were last summer with this guy, where he wasn't taken as seriously. And there he is getting pinned by Jamie Noble one week, and he's selling for Kane the next, and he's the whipping boy for Hunter and Stephanie. I think that was the biggest negative towards his title reign, and the injury allowed them to kind of get rid of all the stuff that did not work and look at all the attributes that this great performer does have.
Yeah, I mean, we've only seen him for 2 nights so far, but I hope to see at least a bit of an evolution in the Seth Rollins character, aside from losing the blonde streak. But judging from tonight, I'm not that optimistic that he's going to be any type of different of a character.
You hope that there is a ray of hope left, even if there isn't in his hair.
Blonde, yes.
Each and every week, it's your chance to win a t-shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com. Simply answer the trivia question and tweet @LawRadio for your chance to win each and every Thursday. Then they did something very uncharacteristic. They listed 5 matches that would be coming up on Raw throughout the rest of the show. Money in the Bank qualifying matches. We were going to get Miz and Cesaro, Ambrose Ziggler, Jericho and Apollo Crews, Sheamus against Sami Zayn, and AJ Styles against Kevin Owens. So quite the lineup.
Yeah, looks great.
Renee interviewed Sheamus backstage, and he laughs about Sami Zayn's name. Boy.
It says the man named Sheamus O'Shaughnessy.
Yes. He makes fun of his look and then says he's not even American. You know this, right, Renee? Which was funny.
Yeah.
And says that this match will not be suitable for all ages. And that took us to Sheamus and Sami Zayn in our qualifying match. Sheamus was on offense, and then Zayn hit a tilt-a-whirl head scissors, which was identified as a Hurricane Rana. Then Zayn hit a moonsault off the barricade to Sheamus on the floor. A knee knocked Zayn off the apron as they went through the commercial break. Sheamus was in control, then ran into a Michinoku driver, and then Zayn applied a Greco-Roman knuckle lock, scaled to the top, and Sheamus kicked the ropes, dropping Zayn. And then Zayn ducked a brogue kick, sent Sheamus to the floor, and Sheamus blocked a tope with a forearm, staggered into the ring, and just got hit with the haluva kick, and Zayn pinned Sheamus. And Cole notes how Sheamus won Money in the Bank last year and does not qualify this year, as the distraught Sheamus was left in the ring, losing to a non-American with a goofy name.
Mm-hmm. The camera certainly focused a lot on Sheamus, so I would assume they'd be telling some type of losing streak story with him, especially ahead of the Ninja Turtles appearance. I think it could be interesting. Last year's winner doesn't qualify this year. Certainly, all the League of Nations guys, they're not. I mean, Rusev may be aside, but certainly Sheamus has taken a big hit over the past several months, and maybe there's a story there.
Yes. Renee interviews Apollo Crews backstage and says that this is the biggest match of his life tonight with Jericho, and then gets jumped by Sheamus as he is stating that he was part of the new era, and it kind of is giving you the sense that Sheamus is going to be this bully character towards the new era guys, right. Kind of the role that the Dudleys played on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So that appears to be the direction going there. Then the New Day comes out with a cake in the ring, and the cake is for Raw, as they state that this is episode 1200 and Raw is now over 23 years old, which is not how birthdays work.
Yeah, I mean, isn't the birthday the debut episode?
That would be the birth date of Raw, would be January 11th, I believe. Mm-hmm. We are in the month of May. So for whatever reason, we had a birthday cake here. It
would be like me celebrating my, 1200th day of being alive, which would make me 2.
Technically, every day would be a celebration, right? Every week should be a celebration of Raw.
Yeah.
Just one number after the other. Big E is concerned about a cake inside of a wrestling ring and someone getting hit with it as he teases throwing it into a...
It wouldn't make me 2. It would make... I don't know what it would make me. I'm bad with math.
Well, Big E was very good here with this cake because he avoided throwing into any of the fans' faces or the announcers. And then Woods and Kingston get jumped by the social outcasts in the ring, and they run around with the trombone, which led to a 6-man tag that went very short. Slater got knocked down by all 3 of them, and Woods hit a somersault dive to Dallas and Axel on the floor, and the big ending was hit. They pinned Heath in 1:55, and then Heath Slater was tossed into the cake.
It was a nothing jokey segment for the cake punchline. I checked the Raptors score during this. This was stupid.
The Miz and Maurice come out, and Maurice announces that her husband is still the Intercontinental Champion. Miz notes how he won Money in the Bank in the past, and he will do it again. He overcame the odds at Extreme Rules, just like the character Rudy, and says that he had the match for the title at the show, and lists off all the different actors that could play him, including Dwayne Johnson. And their kiss was interrupted by Cesaro, who came out, and we had a matchup built all around uppercuts. I think there were 260 of these. There were uppercuts at the start, a somersault dive off the apron to take down Miz on the floor, and then a spinning uppercut off the ropes by Cesaro. They went through a commercial in here. Cesaro comes back, more uppercuts. Miz climbs, gets drop kicked to the floor, and then there's a running uppercut on the floor as Cesaro is clutching his bad shoulder, which Miz is attacking. Cesaro goes for the swing but cannot continue it due to his shoulder injury, blocks the skull-crushing finale, and then his shoulder gets snapped on the top rope. Miz comes off the top into an uppercut, and Cesaro hits the Gotch neutralizer for the win.
It works for him. It's very effective. It was a good match.
It was a good match, yes. Yeah. So Cesaro advances as well, joining Sami Zayn. Renee is with Seth Rollins backstage. He says his cash-in was the greatest of all time and will now take back the title that he never lost. And then he sees off into the distance Stephanie McMahon in her lone appearance on the show, where Rollins wants a hug and Stephanie is not obliging, says that things have changed since his last appearance here, including their business relationship, shakes Rollins' hand, and leaves.
I was expecting a slap. I was expecting some type of, demeaning, get down on your feet, or I don't know.
No, she spaces them out. We just had last week, of course, with Rick. Poor Rick, 2 weeks in a row.
Well, this week at least it was, worth it.
So that was it for Stephanie. Between Extreme Rules and Raw, she was on camera for about 30 seconds. Catch all of our podcasts daily up at FightNetwork.com. You can also subscribe to Live Audio Wrestling on iTunes and listen through the free Stitcher app. Chris Jericho took on Apollo Crews in our next qualifying match, and Chris Jericho was bandaged all over his back to sell the tax spots. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is taking tax to a new level.
Yeah.
Or at least the selling of them. Mm-hmm. And kind of built the match around Crews just slamming this guy on his back and then at certain points like kicking at the wounds.
It looked really nice. I mean, the spot obviously looked great at the pay-per-view, but the bandages really helped, show the effectiveness too.
Yeah, that match seemed much more digestible in highlight form the next day.
Well, it was like 29 minutes shorter.
Yes, a 26-second package for a 26-minute match. Sheamus is watching this match backstage. Cruz, again, just kicking away at his back, scoop slamming him.
Cruz, by the way, showed no signs of the attack previous.
Yeah, this was awful because he came out and the announcers are asking what effect will it have. Meanwhile, this guy's coming out smiling.
Smiling like nothing had happened.
No selling at all of this beatdown to even suggest. And the guy was losing. Mm-hmm. They could have given him this out that here he is weakened and still coming out for this big match because it means so much. And it gave him an out. Instead, it was just the beatdown was nonsense.
Jericho looked more injured than he did.
He was. He was the one who sold throughout this from the night before. Cruz hit this running kick, a flying reverse elbow. And then Jericho blocks the sit-out powerbomb into the walls of Jericho. Cruz reaches the rope. And then Jericho goes for the lion salt, and Cruz was doing a kip-up to avoid the lion salt, but then lost his balance and fell backwards, and Jericho's knee looked like it crashed into his head. So I don't know what the hell happened to Cruz here, but he lost his balance on the kip-up, and very awkward looking, and they just tried to work around it here.
There were shades of the Neville injury also involving Jericho from several months back. And, Jericho having to improvise upon an injury or some type of screw-up. But,
this guy's just had bad luck with
kind of bad luck. But, I mean, if you're going to be injured in the ring with anybody or at least screw up in the ring with anybody, it's you should do it with Chris Jericho because this dude knows how to improvise and...
So they worked around it, and then Jericho hit the code breaker and pinned Cruz in 7:47 as Sheamus was laughing backstage about the loss by Cruz.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they'll break him off into a program with Sheamus. Cruz, I feel like they were probably going to wait for him, for a couple months after debuting him on the roster to really kind of give him something. Maybe this is that thing, but it certainly doesn't look like he's mid-card, even upper mid-card. He's kind of a low mid-card person right now, maybe on the level of a Sheamus. I didn't find him all that impressive in this match. I think his main strength is just short, quick matches with really impressive high-flying spots for a guy his size. And I thought he just kind of looked average. Very average.
Yeah, I think Apollo Crews, I mean, someone that hasn't even been on Raw.
His promo was, obviously very lacking, too, for the little amount that he spoke on the show today.
I mean, there was no idea for this guy when he was called up. I mean, we're 2 months into this now. There was no idea for him. He's been off TV more weeks than he's been on. I just don't think he was ready for the call-up. There was no room for him on the roster, or at least no idea for him on the roster. There is room. They replayed the Darren Young, Bob Backlund spot from SmackDown last week. Are you liking these, or are these not working for you?
I liked the one last week.
Smartphone?
Yeah, they're just really corny, and I get the idea. You have two completely polar opposites trying to get along, and I think as an odd couple type of pairing, they can be quite funny. I think Bob Backlund is just hilarious playing whatever character he's able to play. This week didn't really hit that so much. It was just kind of felt like they were kind of fumbling for something that never came.
JoJo was backstage with Baron Corbin. There was about 18 feet of difference between these two individuals. And they recapped Corbin's win over Ziggler at the pay-per-view and was interrupted by Ziggler. This feud is just never going to end. Ziggler says that Corbin, in talking about things he cannot do, cannot string 3 words together without looking and sounding like a hipster Frankenstein on tranquilizers.
Good description.
If I had a dime for every time I've heard that insult. Appearing on Breaking Ground without looking like a tool, and says he also can't beat Dolph Ziggler in a technical wrestling match.
Sure.
Wow.
Ouch.
Corbin says he never grew up wanting to be a great technical wrestler. He likes beating people up and says he can beat Dolph up again, and then they can discuss his technical wrestling. So we are going to get yet another match between these two on Raw next week.
This is a feud that will just not end. But on the plus side, I thought Baron's promo sounded pretty good tonight.
I think they can get him more to the kind of the tail end of his NXT run, where he just became the guy that just hates wrestling fans and hates everything that. Yeah. I mean, that was his character essentially.
Kind of hinted at that. You know, I didn't grow up watching WWE and wanting to be world champion like you. So.
Big Cass comes out and then points to the entranceway as Enzo comes out, nearly having a seizure. He drops his microphone off the ramp and has to go down and retrieve it. Very big reaction to these two.
It's amazing how over these two already are like 2 months in to the main roster.
It's amazing how well Cass did on his own during these 3 weeks.
He really held it together.
Did you see his spot at the pay-per-view?
Remind me. I forget.
On the pre-show with the Dudleys?
No, actually I didn't. What?
It was very good. Again, it was just him coming out and essentially having to cut a promo, and a lengthy one, and it was funny. The crowd was super into it. Enzo cuts a lengthy promo here. He says he forgot to pay his electric bill. They cut my lights out, in reference to his concussion, and calls it a hard sneeze. And then they refer to Bub and Devin Dud as a bunch of haters. They mention some deli meat and then call them soft, as Bubba comes out for a singles match with Cass.
Enzo has definitely been missed. I feel like Cass has been doing great, but I thought we were, especially last week, kind of approaching the point where he was starting to get exposed with his limitations on the microphone. So I think Enzo is definitely welcome back at this point. However, I
think they're going to be going with Cass sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
I think their time as a team is ticking.
Yeah. But tonight he was overly excited, almost too much, and understandably so.
Oh, Cass was like thrown off. He was like, okay. Yeah. It's my turn now.
But it was good that, Cass was able to demonstrate that composure and basically have to, he was able to reel Enzo back a little.
So we had Cass and Bubba. Devon knocked down Enzo on the floor. So even though they didn't put him in the ring, he was doing physical things here. So I would imagine that's a complete clearance at that point if he's doing actual physical things here. He distracted Cass, and Bubba was able to get a back suplex. Cass hit a clothesline, splash in the corner. Enzo runs on the floor, and Cass launches him into Devon on the floor, and then Cass tosses Bubba off the top turnbuckle, big boot, Empire elbow, and pins Bubba in 315, clean with the elbow.
I don't think I have a problem, pushing Cass as a singles with Enzo as a manager. I think that could work. I think the problem, though, gets to be you're going to have this guy work singles matches now. And I think he was certainly hid well, kind of with the small guy in a tag team format. In a singles match, I think he still needs some work.
Yeah, and I mean, Enzo, he's a great talker, but I mean, the tag team very much benefits him. I mean, being a babyface manager, that would be very tough for the long haul. You can check out the Law's YouTube channel at youtube.com/liveaudiowrestling. Subscribe for all of your free videos, including Ask Away, interviews, and much more. Then Charlotte, Ric Flair, and Dana Brooke come out, and Rick is saying how proud of Charlotte he is, and ever since she won the women's title, says that she has always made everything happen for herself in life. And Charlotte then goes to thank the one person, herself, for her win on Sunday. Charlotte then talks about when she was a kid and Thanksgivings and Christmases and birthdays, which the crowd started chanting "what" at, and Charlotte just yelled back at them and says she has always had to watch her dad on television growing up, but now understands because she is the women's champion and she has never been more powerful and confident, and says she finally has the courage to tell Rick to get out of her ring, and says that everyone from Rick's generation just doesn't want to get out of the spotlight. She is tired of being called Ric Flair's daughter because now Rick is known as Charlotte's father. And Rick, if there is one thing in this world you can bank on this man being able to produce on a moment's notice, it is tears for an emotional promo. And that the waterworks were going here on Rick. And Charlotte started teasing him about his crying. She doubted if she could do it on her own, but now she has learned she can and calls Rick the second dirtiest player in the game. She does not have room for people to finish in second and does not need him, says Rick abandoned her. Rick is immortal to the fans, but dead to her, and tells Rick to watch her on TV just like she did for the last 30 years, and Rick leaves in tears. This was outstanding.
It was. A lot happened here in this segment. And it started off with Ric Flair cutting, what was really a babyface promo. And it was a little confusing coming off of last night and, their heel. What I thought was to now become a 3-person heel team with Dana Brooke, Charlotte, and Ric Flair. So Rick.
Though the hints were there with Rick being,
right.
They were definitely hinting at that in the TV.
So Rick comes out, in a very genuine statement, says, "I've been really proud of you, Charlotte," and that kind of threw people off because everybody wants to kind of, boo this team. But then Charlotte starts talking, and that she's beginning her heel turn, or at least her turn on her father. And then she kind of gets caught up in the crowd's reaction, the crowd booing over her promo. And, the crowd starts doing the what chants. She does her best to deflect it, but it only actually made the crowd chant what louder. And I thought it kind of threw her off a little and kind of prevented this from being a completely perfect, clean promo, unfortunately. But she did ultimately stumble onto an excellent performance, emotionally, full of passion, and some of the words that she said to her father, they felt very real. Whether or not they were, I don't know, but she was able to deliver it with great intensity and great, believability.
Yeah, I thought she was great here. I thought that the stuff from the crowd, I like the fact she didn't ignore it, and it actually worked to her advantage. I mean, you're a heel. If you don't like what the crowd's chanting, you can easily turn it around, and I thought she did very well here. I think that they could have given Rick an opportunity to – I mean, he was given about 30 seconds here to set this up before you got Charlotte. I mean, Rick could have just given the speech of all speeches, putting over his daughter, and then but – I mean, he got very little time to even establish that, and I think it was jarring for people.
But even in the short time that Ric Flair was able to speak, he didn't sound all that great either to me. I think Rick has been giving great performances, during this run. But
when he has to talk, it's like this is a guy that is awful at memorizing, and that's what he has been given.
Yeah. But overall, I thought a really great segment for Charlotte. So, it looks like that they're going to go with the tandem of, her and Dana Brooke. So it makes me wonder if this was ever, if this was really set in motion while Emma was still around, or if it was because Emma got injured that they decided to take Ric Flair out of the picture and pair.
Oh, Dana I would imagine not. I'm sure this was just a call after the Emma injury of what they're going to do with Dana. And it's a good spot for her. Yeah. And this angle was really, really strong. I think this was maybe Charlotte's best, at least speaking performance. If not,
she's gained so much confidence over the past several months.
The announcers are stunned after the break, with JBL stating that he just watched Rick's heart break and is disgusted at the actions of Charlotte. Dean Ambrose took on Dolph Ziggler in our next Money in the Bank qualifying match. They had an okay match, I thought.
They tried to have a technical match, to kind of play off of the Dolph's promo earlier. I didn't necessarily feel the crowd in the mood for the technical match at this point in the show, especially coming off of
this crowd really came down in the third hour, and that was even with a really great main event.
And especially coming off of Dean Ambrose doing that Asylum match, that thumbtack match, I don't know if technical wrestling was really, on anybody's appetite right now.
Ziggler goes to the floor and avoids taking a suicide dive as they go through a break. Ambrose blocked a flying DDT, sent Ziggler to the floor, and hit the suicide dive. Ziggler then blocked a super kick. Both went for cross bodies in the middle of the ring. There was a super kick to Ambrose, who came back with the slingshot clothesline. And then Ziggler hit a drop kick as Ambrose came off the top. Ziggler dived at him with a headbutt. Zigzag is blocked, and Ambrose grabs him, hits the dirty deeds, and wins.
Yeah.
In a technical wrestling match. Mm-hmm. I guess that's Dolph's gimmick now. Technical wrestling matches. Mm-hmm. Well, he lost this one.
What does this mean for Corbin and Ziggler? More prelim matches?
Well, it means at least a match on Raw next week, if not more. We can only hope. This Wednesday on Review Away, we are reviewing 2 episodes of WCW Monday Nitro from 1996, featuring the debuts of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash after they left the WWF. Plus, we will dig into the archives, and we'll hear from Paul Heyman with his thoughts on how WCW utilized Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Rick is seen walking backstage. He hugs Arn, who apologizes. And then Renee goes to speak to Flair, and he has nothing to say. He's just in tears, and he leaves the building looking like a broken father.
He leaves the exit sign door, the door with the exit sign on it. So you know he's actually leaving.
He's really gone.
But I took this to be Rick's farewell, the end of his run with Charlotte, and maybe one of the last times we'll get to see him in a regular role.
Yeah, I don't see him coming back. I mean, he's not going to be bringing back some other woman to go after Charlotte.
I think he's done.
This very much looked to be the write-off of Rick.
And a little sad, legitimately for that, because I think you could see the thrill on his face to come out and perform with his daughter every single night, but it couldn't have lasted forever. So
he's got to watch her on TV now.
Yeah,
for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
There was a Shining Stars promo on a green screen inviting the WWE fans to come to Puerto Rico. So we're going backwards now. We got the in-ring debut. Now we're going back to more vignettes.
Yeah, I mean,
these ones are not on location any longer. So we've actually eliminated the budget for the vignettes, but the concept is still there.
They had a bit of a green screen.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Well, it's another one of those teams where they come up with an idea for them, have no idea how to actually push them as professional wrestlers. They debut them, and then the next week they don't know what to do with them. So sit back here while we come up with an idea for you guys.
This tag division is really screwed up at the moment.
Well, it's stacked, and I think there are a lot of good teams. And the fact that we're even talking about a tag division with known teams,
but we have no challengers for these champions. They just blew off the Vaudevillains.
Yeah,
I mean, there was no reason to continue that.
Right. You do have teams like Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. The Dudleys, you can always rehab quickly. Who else is there?
That was a program that New Day went through for months with the Dudleys.
Enzo and Cass it looks like they're done now. But they can always go back to that. Tag team run with the two of them.
AJ comes out and says he knows Roman Reigns is every bit the man he says he is. And this was not a statement this crowd wanted to hear. AJ Styles putting over Roman. But AJ qualifies it by saying Roman Reigns is not phenomenal. He says he had Reigns beaten, but blames the Usos, Anderson, and Gallows for getting involved. And if it weren't for those guys, he would have won the WWE title last night. And this prompts Anderson and Gallows to come out and take exception to being included for the blame of AJ not winning this match. And says that things have changed. This is not Japan. And says they have saved Styles from a lot of fights over the years and helped him get to Extreme Rules unscathed. Styles says that they just have to separate professionally, but says they will always be brothers. And Gallows and Anderson are like, screw this. We are not brothers, you jerk. And they walked out when Styles said this is his ring. And you got the sense that there's totally going to be a run-in, but instead, no run-in. This is the last you saw of Anderson and Gallows, and something for the future you can go to.
I imagine we'll probably
immediate future.
Yeah, I imagine we'll get some follow-up with this either on SmackDown or next week. It seems like this, to me, is AJ's next program is with these guys.
Finds a partner?
Or, they attack him somehow. But I thought the point of this was... I thought that for a breakup, I found this a little bit weak. We didn't kind of have that big shocking moment. Not to say every breakup.
I don't think this was I think you're going to get the big physical angle at some point where they attack him or where the next chapter is.
But I thought part of the idea of this promo was to make sure that people knew that AJ was a clear baby face prior to the next match, because last night he certainly showed a lot of heel characteristics.
So they announced for SmackDown this week a pair of title matches, The Miz against Cesaro for the Intercontinental title and Rusev against Kalisto for the U.S. title. AJ Styles took on Kevin Owens in the main event in our 5th Money in the Bank qualifying match for the evening. Owens landed a drop kick and then mocked Styles' pose as JBL compares him to jumping Jim Brunzell. Styles goes to the floor and teases a dive, and then instead of diving, just slides under the bottom rope to the floor, clotheslining AJ. And then Owens gets thrown into the steps. They go through a commercial break. Styles was in control after they return, and Owens lands with a released German, follows with a cannonball. Then Styles recovers and hits his own released German, and follows with the Ushigoroshi, identified as a knee to the back of the head, and got a 2 count. Owens then missed with a moonsault off the top. Styles then hit a springboard 450 and got a 2 count off of that. and then Styles went for a springboard to the floor, but he lost his footing and just gave up on it right away. Hopped down to the apron and hit a running kick. It was like, not doing this. And that was, to me, the best kind of recovery.
Well, it almost seemed intentional to me, that whole thing. And
well, Owens was definitely placed off to the side, but
right.
Anyway.
So, it goes to show how effective it was, the fact that we're even debating it.
And then AJ got powerbombed onto the steps, beat the count into the ring, and then he blocked a pop-up powerbomb, hit Owens with the Pele, and then there was a springboard. Owens kicked the ropes to knock AJ off, and then hit the pop-up powerbomb, and Kevin Owens pinned AJ Styles clean.
Really great match.
Very, very good match.
AJ Styles, I don't know, how many contenders there are right now for Performer of the Year this early, but I would personally rate him all the way up there. The man's just been incredibly consistent, and he's really reinvigorated the WWE's main event scene over the past several months.
I feel the guy's been the best guy on the roster, and I think you could put Owens right up there as well. So very good main event. A lot of stuff coming out of this show. You had, with the Rollins return, the Money in the Bank qualifying matches. Typically a show that does generate a lot of interest. I thought overall a pretty good show. I think the crowd really came down, though, in the third hour. I think it was noticeable even in the main event that third hour.
Everybody was watching the Raptor game, obviously.
1200th birthdays parties tend to, they're 2 hours max.
The Money in the Bank the match this year looks like it's going to be stacked with legitimate contenders. I look at all the people that qualified on this show, and I actually have a bit of difficulty predicting who they can go with, but because they can go with so many people. Over the past year, I'd say they've gathered a great number of contenders that could legitimately vie for the championship. I could see them putting it on Ambrose. I could see them putting it on Kevin Owens. Who else qualified?
We had Sami Zayn, Dean Ambrose, Chris Jericho.
Yeah, he's not winning.
Kevin Owens and Cesaro.
Okay, and even a Cesaro I could see. Probably a bit more of a long shot, but who would you say so far?
Owens would be my pick. I think he's got the most upside of the five in there.
He's a heel.
Yeah, I think so. And there's a possibility they could put Cena in there, or he could go off into his own program. I very much could see something next week where Rusev is mauling Kalisto, who that was when Cena's last appearance. It was working with Kalisto, and then Cena makes his big save, and that's your feud. You go back to and rehash that program. But John Cena's back next week on the show, so that will be what everything is geared towards next week. I thought overall this was a pretty good episode of Raw. I really enjoyed the Charlotte segment a lot too.
I thought it was a pretty straightforward show that was building towards your next pay-per-view, and I didn't have an issue with that.
Each and every week, it's your chance to win a t-shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com. Simply answer the trivia question and tweet @LawRadio for your chance to win each and every Thursday.
Did you want to talk about the Shane McMahon?
Yeah, let's get into that. The Shane McMahon interview, this thing went overtime on the WWE Network. First of all, what did you think of Mick Foley as a host in an unfamiliar position?
Does he have a podcast?
No.
Okay, so I didn't think so, because he definitely seemed out of his element, and I'd say for somebody kind of doing this, probably without that much experience, I'd say he did pretty well, but compared to Steve Austin, who I think is the best at doing these, he was not good.
I thought by I think the first 15, 20 minutes, I thought both were trying to... I thought Shane was very uncomfortable for the first half of this, to be honest with you. I think there were certain answers that he was just very, very short and to the point over that didn't really allow for a lot. The last half, though, I did enjoy quite a lot, and I thought Foley was very good with a lot of good follow-ups as well.
Once you got into the more kind of the meatier subjects, like, Shane leaving, or, I guess doing the dive off of the cell, of which obviously he could relate, then I think we got into some more interesting conversation. But there were just points where I felt like Foley was kind of bouncing between, not wanting to offend the subject in Shane too much, to just outright trying to pry for answers. Like the question about do you feel jealous of Triple H or Stephanie? Shane just obviously said no. Like, he said no multiple times. but Foley
He was
just kept running.
hesitant, though, on that answer. And, I mean, that's also a program everyone expects to happen. But nonetheless, I think, listen, Shane hardly gave a definitive answer there. And I think Foley was totally read between the lines there and pushed him. I give him credit for that.
I don't know what you're supposed to say, though, if you actually don't feel jealous. Like, what are you supposed to say?
Wait, you can hear tons of BS answers from people and know that they are just putting on it. Dude,
I don't fault the guy.
Shane hardly gave some ringing endorsement here.
I don't blame the guy for going after it, but I just didn't feel like he did it with the tact that I would expect somebody like a Steve Austin to approach a subject like that with.
Well,
what other stand-up points of the interview?
Well, I mean, the beginning half was really a lot about what I assumed it would be
career.
Growing up a McMahon. Yeah. I mean, here is somebody that, he talked about his athletic background, and I mean...
Who cares?
Like,
I don't care about that.
I think a lot of it, too, was just... To me, it was like when we were getting to things like, Shane eventually became a world-class wrestler.
My psychology. I got trained in psychology. Where is this evidence of your psychology, Shane, in any of the matches?
Well, that's been the biggest complaint, is that Shane McMahon matches are devoid of psychology. I mean, that is...
He should have asked, where did you learn to jump off of things?
Listen, really I will fully admit that, like, this guy has certainly... He's a popular character because of those matches. Yeah. I mean, there was a giant appreciation, I would say, of a lot of the stunts he did. But some of the stuff at WrestleMania, like, listen, I'm sure on a personal level, it was a touching story to hear. Actually, the most interesting stuff I heard in the interview was where he talked about the fact that he never got any kind of acceptance from his father. Like, his dad was the last one to compliment him on anything, and he finally got that at WrestleMania. I'm sure that match meant a whole lot to him. But to talk about stealing the show at WrestleMania, like, yes, that stunt was the visual. That was a god-awful match. And
yeah,
I can't just put my head in the sand and look back at Shane saying, there's nothing I would change about that match. It was great. And he was even contemplating at the end, did that match need that dive at the end? And he didn't need it. Can you imagine that match without that dive at the end? Had that just ended with a tombstone?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. That reaction was a very much the Asylum match was better than that Hell in a Cell
whole match, yes.
At WrestleMania.
Yeah, I'll have to agree
and it was the same deal. It was a way too long match that the crowd was not into for 95% of it.
Yeah,
that was the WrestleMania match, and that was the Asylum match on Sunday.
So I thought, a little too much praise given to Shane McMahon's ability as a wrestler for me to kind of really buy it. Well, but I thought it was interesting. However awkwardly Foley was able to transition to it when Shane was kind of talking about Vince's perspective for the Montreal Screwjob and how, I suppose disappointed he was. I know you're completely sick of the topic. I am sick of it.
I literally wrote Screwjob and I moved on. I didn't even want to talk about it.
I was also interested in him talking about, a bit about the WCW invasion and kind of his part on that final Nitro. And I don't
meeting with the talent beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these are stories that I think you and I have probably heard. And honestly, I don't know how much interest there was in a Shane McMahon in-depth interview beyond knowing about the time that he left. And, perhaps the dive off the cell.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of I think the most interest was about the return. He says, it was made 3 weeks out when he stated he had gotten the call from Vince and kind of discussed, like, him and Undertaker have talked about this for a while, like the idea of doing some kind of match together. So it seems like something that has always been floating around for Shane and Taker, and this was the year to do it. And beyond that, I mean, they didn't talk about anything about this massive stipulation that was ignored. I thought that would be addressed. To me, that was a big deal. Like, what happened after WrestleMania? Because the next night you were back, and it seems like you were not supposed to be here beyond WrestleMania. So that was what I was curious to see, but you didn't really get that. So there you go. That was the Shane McMahon interview on the WWE Network. And this week on the Live Audio Wrestling Network, we are going to be reviewing 2 episodes of Nitro, Mr. Ting.
Yeah.
From May and June of 1996.
It is the 20th anniversary of Scott Hall's appearance on WCW Nitro, the beginning of the NWO. That was 20 years ago.
And Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
So we will be reviewing those 2 episodes of Nitro. You can tune in Wednesday at liveaudiowrestling.com, and you can catch a review of Raw each Tuesday at 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time here on Fight Network.
We have a contest?
Yes, we have a contest all week long. Your chance to win a copy of Our Nation's Pride and WrestleMania 32. Watch for yourself, and you can let us know if Shane McMahon and The Undertaker stole the show at WrestleMania. Go to liveaudiowrestling.com for all the details. Really, all you have to do is tweet us at Law Radio, your favorite Canadian wrestler of all time, and use the hashtag Law Contest. And we'll draw a winner later this week. That's all for us. We'll speak with you next time.